Hello everyone, my name is Jessica and I will be your host for the workshop today. This is one of 7 workshops offered this November by SkillSeries in collaboration with Brilliant Catalyst. The workshops we are offering this month includes Introduction to Zapier, Building Prototypes, Using InVision, Basic Photography, Email Etiquette, Canva Workshop, How to Create a Website, and now this, Setting up Payment Methods for Billing to an Account. This is a very important topic to remember when it comes to having a small business, as it is the main factor and source of where you collect your income, manage your money in, and money out. So, before we get started on the event today, I'd like to take some time to explain SkillSeries and for you to meet the team. I'd like to ask you a question. Are there any topics about life that you have no idea about what it is and somehow it's not taught in school? Maybe there are skills that you want to have but don't know how to get it? Don't worry, we at SkillSeries understand you completely. SkillSeries is one of the Enactus chapters at Ontario Tech University, and we are a team of young adults who have a vision of bringing forward topics in relation to skills that we don't exactly get the chance to learn in school. We do this by utilizing resources and reaching out to knowledgeable community members to host topics to help the workers of tomorrow, with skill learning opportunities and challenging topics before setting foot into the real world. The real world can be quite a scary place, and it is even harder if we are on our own trying to figure out life. That's why SkillSeries is here to help you out. Alright, now for the topic of today, I'll be sharing with you the steps, pointers, and legal considerations that all come into play when setting up payment methods for billing to an account. We will be going over types of payments, and what are the pros and cons of various different types of payment methods, important considerations, legal documentation, setting it up, and finally some information about the POS system and what it does. If you have a small business or are thinking of having a small business, there are different factors such like coming up with a brand, how to market, what products you want to sell, but there's also one factor that you have to have for your business to work: how you accept payments. There are a ton of different payment methods nowadays compared to even just a decade ago. I'm sure you've all heard of some of these options such as paper checks, cash, debit and credit, prepaid cards, gift cards, mobile payments, electronic bank transfers, and third-party apps. Each payment have their own pros and cons, and it is important to make note of these pros and cons when considering how you will be accepting funds for your goods and services, and also how you'll be making these transactions for your company. Let's go into some of the pros and cons. So, the first one is going to be cash. Cash is the most common method, but nowadays with the increase of online shopping and contactless payments in favor of COVID, of course, this method has been cut down drastically. The benefits of accepting and making transactions with cash is that it's the easiest form of payment. And for businesses, you will be expected to always accept cash if it is not a strictly online business. There are also no processing or transaction fees like some other payment methods. On the other hand, there are some cons to consider. Not everyone may have cash on them at all times, and it may not be the best idea to only accept cash. It can also be challenging and dangerous having to store a large amount of cash in the store unless you are in contact with your banking facility to come and collect and deposit that large amount of cash for you. It's also important to think about the time it takes and the time it takes to count cash at the end of the day when closing and to train individuals so that money is properly documented and stored at the end of each day when you open and close. Counting cash is not only time consuming, but it also costs money to train yourself and other employees on how to do so. Cash is a transaction that is open for a lot of room for error as well, as everything is done by the hands of an individual. With that in mind, it is very easy to give the wrong amount of change back to the customer, leading to discrepancies. Discrepancies is an error when your banking system states that you should have made X amount of money this day, but the amount you actually have at the end of the day does not add up to that amount. This can either be too much money or not enough. If you have more money than what was supposed to be made, then that means you gave too much customer to a customer at one point in the day. You gave too much change to a customer at one point in the day. If you made less than that amount of money stated, then more change was given to a customer than expected. Both situations are problematic and require filling a discrepancy report in order to make note and to keep track of these mistakes. it's not fun to have to track down discrepancies because sometimes you can have multiple transactions every day, and to find the needle in literally a haystack can be challenging and time consuming. Next is checks. Checks are also a popular payment method in favor of large purchases. Checks are easy to work with on a customer standpoint and for you as the business owner as well. Checks are easy to carry around and it is just a slip of paper and you can put however much money you would like. So for the business owner, it's a safer way for you to store money since it is not hard cash and there's only so much checks. Checks can be easily deposited, and when storing in the store, it's not as big of a hassle than having hard cash, simply due to the quantity. Unfortunately, there are also processing delays that can occur with checks, especially with larger amounts of money. Bank processing timeframes can range within this delay, and this ultimately means that there will be a delay for you to receive the money. Also, you may also run the risk of being given a false check in which the check bounces back and you do not receive the money. This is important to be cautious when accepting checks because of these risks. Hence, why you should only take checks if you are sure that the payment method is the best choice for the scenario. A good example could be custom designing or, let's say, bulk orders. So when the customer comes to pay for the service, they don't exactly receive the goods or the services at that moment because it is not made yet or requires delivery. This allows the company to ensure that the payment has been approved and accepted before the customer leaves with the goods or services you are providing. Next, we have debit, credit, prepaid cards, and other payment methods. Yes. So, next one I'm sure we are all familiar with because I'm pretty sure we all have these types of cards on hand at all times, right? Yeah. Prepaid cards work like a gift card and can be used at any store. It is a preset amount of money put into a card that can be used for purchasing. The pros of using this method is that it is a very common for frequent purchases. It is also better for larger purchases. This method of payment is very convenient for the customers and can make checkout processing even faster as they don't need to worry about carrying a lot of cash on them or even carry their card on them because we have something that's like e-wallets, like for example Apple Pay. Accepting debit and credit and prepaid cards make checkout a lot easier as the time for transactions are cut down greatly. And also, this ties back into the idea of discrepancies because discrepancies are diminished greatly since it is not done by the person. In the perspective of you as the business owner, these methods work in your favor by having less cash having to be stored in the store. Also, transactions have already been sent directly to your business banking account rather than you having to do it by yourself. Of course, with any pros, there are also cons. So, for example, there are a few negatives to be aware of when accepting card payments, and this includes transaction processing time, transaction fees, the need to process a device to initiate and allow for purchasing, fraudulent cards, and disputed charge. Depending on the banking institution you are with and the amount of money that is being sent, there may be a transaction time in which the bank will review the transaction to make sure it is safe to complete. This is done to protect the cardholder, but also to make sure the money is going to the right place. Transaction fees can occur and it is unavoidable, which is why some businesses choose to have a minimum transaction amount in order to be able to pay with a debit, credit, or prepaid, and etc. Transaction fees also occur as a way for financial service providers to charge the customer for using their account or their card. Normally, the transaction fee is pretty small, so it shouldn't exactly be a big charge for you, however, it should still be noted. Next is purchasing a device. You need a card reader or some software to allow you to accept the payment for the customer. These machines can either be rented or owned at a cost. These machines cost money to own, but also to maintain. If there were to be any issues with your device, it costs money to pay for the technician to help resolve the issue as soon as possible, so that you can continue your regular business operations. Setbacks due to malfunction of these devices, however, can impact sales for the day as people are no longer able to make a payment with their intended method of choice. If people don't have cash on them, these devices decide to malfunction, some customers may not be able to have the patience to wait around for the issue to be resolved, causing them to leave. Also, some of the cons, risk of stolen cards or fake cards is also a serious issue. It is not entirely your fault when a transaction has been made, however, your company and other associate businesses will be impacted. Stolen cards do occur, and it is something to be alert of when you are making transactions. Fake cards is illegal, and the way to obtain these credit cards may be able to pass as legitimate to an extent. However, likewise stolen cards, it is something out of your control. However, it is important to know that this situation can happen and it is possible. Lastly, for cons, we have disputed charges. A disputed charge is defined as you or your financial institution or company is challenging a transaction which may result in the transaction being reversed. For one article stated by Capital One shared a number of factors on this topic, and it is very important for you to make note of this. So, why would you make a disputed charge? Perhaps a customer is not satisfied with a purchase that was made on their card. If a customer was not able to get the return at the store, then they can file for a disputed charge with their banking company. Not all charges can be disputed, however. Purchases that were made in cash, for example, cannot be. Checks or money directly deposited from your account as well cannot qualify. Next, this is a very, very common method that we have today. So, this is mobile payments. There are a number of pros and cons associated with this method as well, so let's start with the pros. The method of transaction allows for more frequent purchasing, larger purchases, increased safety of transactions, convenience, and having less cash to store in the store. The cons of this payment includes processing time, transaction fees, needing to rent and buy devices, fake or stolen cards, and disputed charges. So, if you remember from our previous slide, majority of the pros and cons are literally carbon copies of what we have just mentioned. But the main difference is that the convenience of this payment option has. Mobile payments allows individuals to make payments online at the comfort of their own home. Online shopping has been gaining a lot of popularity, and it is a better choice than having to have the hassle of going to the physical store and having to navigate through different aisles when everything can literally be at your hands, your fingertips, at their own convenience. Mobile payments also includes e-wallets such as Apple Pay or direct financial institution apps. I'm sure most of us will always have our phones on us, right? If our cards are on our phones as well, this increases convenience for the customer as they would not need to carry their wallet on them. The ability of having this option can potentially increase sales as studies have shown from Wired and Statista that there have been an incredible influx in popularity with paying with tap. Of course, with this accessibility, it comes at an expense. Not all machines accept tap, and if they do, the machines would have to be more up to date and costly. Companies would have to have a device that accepts NFC transactions. NFC stands for Near Field Communication, and essentially this allows for the communication of two devices within 4 centimeters of reach in order to make a connection and exchange information. Also, before I go on to the next topic, I want to mention about other payment types such like Alipay, WeChat Pay, Kakao Pay, and other third-party apps. These apps are also able to connect one's credit card to an account. However, the payment methods for these different types of transactions are different than NFC. These payment types have a QR code that gets scanned in order to access the customer's card. Due to having a different method of communication, these types of e-cards require their own machine, which can be costly and time-consuming to set up, as well as learning how to operate. Next, we have electronic transfers. So, for this one, I'm sure we are all familiar with this term if for example, go out to eat with friends and you e-transfer your friend money back for their meal. Electronic transfers have a number of pros and cons. Their service allows one to receive large payments with no transaction fees. Interac e-transfers also send you an email or text message that an individual is trying to send money to you, or you are trying to send money to them. And with Interac e-transfers, you should also make note of something called auto deposit and manual deposit. Auto deposit directly transfers the money to your account without needing the person to set a password in which you would have to enter in order to accept. Auto deposit makes the payment easier as you do not need to punch in a code in order to accept the money. However, you will need to be able to know and to keep track of who just made a payment so that you and the customer is on the same page. Electronic transfers are much quicker and convenient than receiving cash or checks, which is true because you don't need to have hard cash on you and you don't have to put it into your bank account after. This method is great because you can also skip the transaction processing time. However, if it is a larger amount, you may have to experience a little bit of a time. If you ever decide to sell products or services to other businesses, this is also a very good option to use and to have because it makes large transactions easier for both you and the recipient. Now, onto the cons. Not all customers may feel comfortable transferring money directly from their banking account to yours, and that is respectable because it is confidential information that not everyone wants to share with businesses. Electronic transfers for you would be the customer taking money from their personal banking account and putting it into yours, which is a business account. Not everyone may feel comfortable with this method due to that fact. On top of safety, you also need to consider the time it takes to set up this transaction with your financial institution. A business account requires more steps and protection as you'll be accepting a lot more transactions each day, unlike a regular personal account. Okay, so we have finished the pros and cons. Now let's talk about important considerations. There are three main considerations that I want to mention to you today, and that includes time, cost, and effort. So it takes time for transactions to process and time for you to learn how to use the devices. If you don't know how to operate the devices to accept payments, then you will not be able to use devices properly or to fix it if anything was to happen. Next, you need to consider the cost. It costs money for you to train yourself and staff members how to use these devices. It also costs money to rent or to own a device. Lastly is effort. Depending on the method of transaction you are willing to accept, there are different protocols you need to follow and to keep track of, which takes effort. If you accept hard cash, you need to consider in the factor of time, cost, and labor for you or your other employees to count cash at the beginning and end of each day to make sure your sheets balance out. If there was to be a discrepancy, you would also need to file and figure out where the discrepancy came from, and which is another hassle to deal with. Same with card purchases, you need to be able to know how to properly end cash at the end of the day on the machines so that your devices will be prepped for the next day and that transactions will not merge. Okay, now we're on to legal considerations. And yes, this may be very important for you if you are thinking of opening a business account soon, so let's start. Opening a banking account is not as simple as opening a personal account. There are a lot of documents waiting for approval and constant communication back and forth between you and your financial institution. To open a bank account for your business, there are documentations and cues to remember. Also, make sure you prepare the information and legal documentation ahead of time in order to save the hassle for you and for the banking institution. Creation of EIN number is an employer insurance number. This is similar to your SIN number, but for a business. Application for an EIN number can be done online, through mail, fax, or telephone. You also want to make sure that you are aware of fees and guidelines. This can be found on the websites and in the fine prints of your financial institution. Make sure you read those. Minimum requirements is just making sure that your business qualifies for the need of having that your business qualifies for having a need for a business banking account, and that you are capable of owning a business account. Also, different institutions also offer different perks and having different interest rates, so it would be highly advisable for you to look and browse your options before settling for one. Now, after hearing all of these different information I just told you, now let me tell you about what you need to apply for an account. So first, you need a legal business name. Well, that's pretty self-explanatory, right? Number 2 is business number. A business number is a 9-digit code as well as a standard identifier for a legal business, which is unique to a business or legal entity. That's something you need to apply for. And then business address. Where's your business located? What is the basic contact information? And how can we reach your business? Just that kind of information. Number 4 is your social insurance number. 5, driver's license. 6, proof of identification. 7, partnership agreement if applicable. and the last one is a business license. All these factors needs to be present in order for you to open a business banking account. And although this list may look daunting because there's so many different components, it is standard for any business to have already. Next is benefits of a business account. There are a few benefits to why you should have a business banking account, and these include safeguarding your funds, convenience in expense tracking, easier bookkeeping, and protection. A business banking account works in your favor, and it is to help you and your company to store payments in the safest way possible. Now, for this slide, titled Important Terminology. On this slide, I want to run through a few terminologies that you should be made known of. So number one is maintenance fee. It's a fee that can come across if you do not meet the minimum required balance at the end of each month. Once again, this is dependent on your financial institution. Some may have a higher amount, some may have a lower amount. It really depends. That's why I encourage you to look at the fine print. Number two is transaction fees. And transaction fees impact you and the customer. Depending on how you make a payment or the size of the payment, financial institutions will have a transaction fee. This fee is often fairly small, and it is a way for the financial institution to charge the customer for using the card to make a purchase. Also, if you are making lots of purchases throughout the month, your business banking account may charge a small fee if you do go over the monthly transaction limit. Number three is early termination fee. It's not common, however, it is if you do decide to terminate your business banking account early, or if you decide to switch financial institutions, you may be charged a fee. Again, that's why I tell you to look at the fine print and to make sure you settle down for one banking institution before making a final decision. Lastly, you have deposit fee. Deposit fees are common and dependent on your institutions. Some may have a limit on the account and how much you can deposit each day, week, and month. If you go over this limit, you may be given a deposit fee, or also called a service fee, for this service. Now, after hearing all this information, you may be wondering, can I open a business account online? Sure you can. You can do this online, in person, it's entirely up to you. Now, we're on to setting it up. Generally, you would have 4 stages, and this is the timeline. The first stage is to determine your goals. What do you want to do? What do you see in the company right now? Do you wish to put your full effort into the business and to continue growing your company? Stage 2 is to do necessary research. Do your research and consider your options before committing. You can take as much time as you need because these decisions are best if you maintain them and made once rather than constantly changing and because you realize you are not a fan of the service being provided. Stage 3 is actually contact and branch out with different financial institutions. At this stage, you should have a good understanding of what financial institution you are planning on settling down with, and in the midst of applying, you should make sure to maintain a good relationship with that institution and the representatives. The last stage, this is the grand finale of approval. You have successfully provided all necessary information and completed all requirements to have a business banking account to help secure and promote your business. Number 4, also, we want to tell you about the POS system. The POS system is something important, but you can worry about this after you have been approved for a banking account, of course. So, remember when I mentioned POS? Let me tell you about it. So, what is POS? POS stands for point of sale. It is a system that allows merchants to accept transactions, and this allows the customer to pay for products they wish to buy. But wait, what's the difference between POS and a regular cash register then? Well, a POS is like a cash register, but with more functions. It allows credit and debit sales as well as NFC transactions, and also POS provides more options and benefits than your classic cash register because a cash register only holds cash. Okay, a POS has a number of functions. It offers a various amount of services for you and how you can accept payments from customers. It also helps you track everything that occurs in the store and what goes out. Inventory checks can be made through the system as you can see what items have been purchased. POS also tracks consumer data as well as work schedules by looking at the login. End of day, EOD, and BOD, beginning of day, these are some very common abbreviations that you should be made note of. At the beginning of your business day, you need to open cash, and at the end of the day, you need to close cash. That means all transactions are to be halted and to record how much money was made this day and total up, and you can keep this for records. The fourth function is discrepancies. Discrepancies are common errors that can occur. This can be done by human miscalculation or even machines. POS collects all transactions, which can be helpful to find out where the discrepancy occurred. All discrepancies need to be reported and made note of at the end of the day. Also, I want to make it clear that this is not an exhaustive list of benefits of a POS system. However, these are the main functions. Next, there are a few common POS brands that include Lightspeed, Touch Bistro, Square, Revel, and Tillpoint. Each of these have their own ways of providing their own benefits in terms of service to their consumers. However, these are the options that you can choose to partner with. When thinking about which POS to use, make sure you do research and to look at your options before committing. Having a business banking account is not something I recommend pushing off on or putting little effort into. If you take the time to make the best decision for your company, you won't have to worry about this again in the future. I wanted to leave you with a quote. Andrea Meyer, online instructor and author, she quotes, "Help your team feel more connected to your company by incorporating the right digital technology and tools for their workflow. Do what you need to help your company to be successful and to make sure to always do your own research and to think about what's the best option before making a decision and making that commitment." Okay, thank you for listening to and joining in on a presentation. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to my email. It's on the screen. And if you would like to have more, if you would like to look at more of our previous workshops, it is all posted on our YouTube channel. Other than that, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.